Why, no, Mr. Holmes, I think not. You have not observed anyone follow or watch you?
I seem to have walked right into the thick of a dime novel,
said our visitor.
Why in thunder should anyone follow or watch me?
We are coming to that. You have nothing else to report to us before we go into this matter? Well, it depends on what you think worth reporting. I think anything out of the ordinary routine of life well worth reporting. Sir Henry smiled.
I don't know much of British life yet, for I've spent nearly all my time in the States and in Canada. But I hope that to lose one of your boots is not part of the ordinary routine of life over here.
You've lost one of your boots? My dear sir, cried Dr. Mortimer, it is only mislaid. You will find it when you return to the hotel. What is the use of troubling Mr. Holmes with trifles of this kind?
Well, he asked me for anything outside the ordinary routine.
Exactly, said Holmes, however foolish the incident may seem. You have lost one of your boots, you say?
Well, mislaid it, anyhow. I put them both outside my door last night, and there was only one in the morning. I could get no sense out of the chap who cleans them. The worst of it is that I only bought the pair last night in the Strand, and I have never had them on.
If you had never worn them, why did you put them out to be cleaned?
They were tan boots and had never been varnished. That was why I put them out.
And I understand that on your arrival in London yesterday, you went out at once and bought a pair of boots.
I did a good deal of shopping. Dr. Mortimer here came round with me. You see, if I'm to be squire down there, I must dress the part, and it may be that I've got a little careless in my ways out west. Among other things, I bought these brown boots, gave $6 for 'em, and had one stolen before ever I had them on my feet.
It seems a singularly useless thing to steal, said Sherlock Holmes. I confess that I share Dr. Mortimer's belief that it will not be long before the missing boot is found. And now, gentlemen, said the baronet with decision, it seems to me that I have spoken quite enough about the little that I know. It is time that you kept your promise and gave me a full account of what we're all driving at. Your request is a very reasonable one, Holmes answered. Dr. Mortimer, I think you could not do better than to tell your story as you told it to us. Thus encouraged, our scientific friend drew his papers from his pocket and presented the whole case as he had done upon the morning before. Sir Henry Baskerville listened with the deepest attention and with an occasional exclamation of surprise.
Well, I seem to have come into an inheritance with a vengeance, said he when the long narrative was finished. Of course, I've heard of the Hound ever since I was in the nursery. It's the pet story of the family, though I never thought of taking it seriously before. But as to my uncle's death, well, it all seems boiling up in my head, and I can't get it clear yet. You don't quite seem to have made up your mind whether it's a case for a policeman or a clergyman.
Precisely.
And now there's this affair of the letter to me at the hotel. I suppose that fits into its place.
It seems to show that someone knows more than we do about what goes on upon the moor, said Dr. Mortimer. And also, said Holmes, that someone is not ill-disposed towards you, since they warn you of danger.
Or it may be that they wish, for their own purposes, to scare me away.
Well, of course, that is possible also. I am very much indebted to you, Dr. Mortimer, for introducing me to a problem which presents several interesting alternatives. But the practical point, which we now have to decide, Sir Henry, is whether it is or is not advisable for you to go to Baskerville Hall.
Why should I not go?
There seems to be danger.
Do you mean danger from this family fiend, or do you mean danger from human beings?
Well, that is what we have to find out.
Whichever it is, my answer is fixed. There is no devil in hell, Mr. Holmes, and there is no man upon earth who can prevent me from going to the home of my own people. And you may take that to be my final answer.
His dark brows knitted, and his face flushed to a dusky red as he spoke. It was evident that the fiery temper of the Baskervilles was not extinct in this their last representative.
Meanwhile,
said he,
I have hardly had time to think over all that you have told me. It's a big thing for a man to have to understand and to decide at one sitting. I should like to have a quiet hour by myself to make up my mind. Now, look here, Mr. Holmes. It's 11:30 now, and I'm going back right away to my hotel. Suppose you and your friend, Dr. Watson, come round and lunch with us at 2. I'll be able to tell you more clearly then how this thing strikes me.
Is that convenient to you, Watson? Perfectly. Then you may expect us. Shall I have a cab called? I prefer to walk, for this affair has flurried me rather. I'll join you in a walk, with pleasure, said his companion.
Then we meet again at 2 o'clock. Au revoir and good morning.
We heard the steps of our visitors descend the stair and the bang of the front door. In an instant, Holmes had changed from the languid dreamer to the man of action. Your hat and boots, Watson, quick! Not a moment to lose. He rushed into his room in his dressing gown and was back again in a few seconds in a frock coat. We hurried together down the stairs and into the street. Dr. Mortimer and Baskerville were still visible, about 200 yards ahead of us, in the direction of Oxford Street. Shall I run on and stop them? Not for the world, my dear Watson. I am perfectly satisfied with your company if you will tolerate mine. Our friends are wise, for it is certainly a very fine morning for a walk. He quickened his pace until we had decreased the distance which divided us by about half. Then, still keeping 100 yards behind, we followed into Oxford Street and so down Regent Street. Once our friend stopped and stared into a shop window, upon which Holmes did the same. An instant afterwards he gave a little cry of satisfaction, and following the direction of his eager eyes, I saw that a hansom cab, with a man inside, which had just halted on the other side of the street, was now proceeding slowly onward again. That's our man, Watson. Come along. We'll have a good look at him, if we can do no more. At that instant, I was aware of a bushy black beard and a pair of piercing eyes turned upon us through the side window of the cab. Instantly, the trap-door at the top flew up. Something was screamed to the driver, and the cab flew madly off down Regent Street. Holmes looked eagerly round for another, but no empty one was in sight. Then he dashed in wild pursuit amid the stream of traffic, but the start was too great, and already the cab was out of sight. There now, said Holmes bitterly, as he emerged panting and white with vexation from the tide of vehicles. Was ever such bad luck and such bad management too? Watson, Watson, if you are an honest man, you will record this also, and set it against my successes. Who was the man? I have not an idea. A spy? Well, it was evident from what we've heard that Baskerville has been very closely shadowed by someone since he has been in town. How else could it be known so quickly that it was the Northumberland Hotel which he had chosen? If they had followed him the first day, I argued that they would follow him also the second. You may have observed that I twice strolled over to the window while Dr. Mortimer was reading his legend. Yes, I remember. I was looking out for loiterers in the street, but I saw none. We are dealing with a clever man, Watson. This matter cuts very deep, and though I have not finally made up my mind whether it is a benevolent or a malevolent agency which is in touch with us, I am conscious always of power and design. When our friends left, I at once followed them in the hopes of marking down their invisible attendant. So wily was he that he had not trusted himself upon foot. But he had availed himself of a cab, so that he could loiter behind or dash past them, and so escape their notice. His method had the additional advantage that if they were to take a cab, he was all ready to follow them. It has, however, one obvious disadvantage. It puts him in the power of the cabman. Exactly. What a pity we did not get the number. My dear Watson, clumsy as I have been, you surely do not seriously imagine that I neglected to get the number. Number 2704 is our man. But that is no use to us for the moment. I fail to see how you could have done more. On observing the cab, I should have instantly turned and walked in the other direction. I should then, at my leisure, have hired a second cab and followed the first at a respectful distance, or, better still, have driven to the Northumberland Hotel and waited there. When our unknown had followed Baskerville home, we should have had the opportunity of playing his own game upon himself and seeing where he made for. As it is, by an indiscreet eagerness, which was taken advantage of with extraordinary quickness and energy by our opponent, we have betrayed ourselves and lost our man. We had been sauntering slowly down Regent Street during this conversation, and Dr. Mortimer, with his companion, had long vanished in front of us. There is no object in our following them, said Holmes. The shadow has departed and will not return. We must see what further cards we have in our play, and play them with decision. Could you swear to that man's face within the cup? I could swear only to the beard, and so could I, from which I gather that in all probability it was a false one. A clever man upon so delicate an errand has no use for a beard save to conceal his features. Come in here, Watson. He turned into one of the district messenger offices, where he was warmly greeted by the manager. "Ah, Wilson, I see you have not forgotten the little case in which I had the good fortune to help you." "No, sir, indeed I have not. You saved my good name and perhaps my life." "My dear fellow, you exaggerate. I have some recollection, Wilson, that you had among your boys a lad named Cartwright, who showed some ability during the investigation." "Yes, sir, he's still with us." "Could you ring him up? Thank you. And I should be glad to have change of this £5 note." A lad of 14, with a bright, keen face, had obeyed the summons of the manager. He now stood gazing with great reverence at the famous detective. "Let me have the hotel directory," said Holmes. "Thank you. Now, Cartwright, there are the names of 23 hotels here, all in the immediate neighbourhood of Charing Cross. Do you see?" "Yes, sir." "You will visit each of these in turn." "Yes, sir." "You will begin in each case by giving the outside porter 1 shilling. Here are 23 shillings. "Yes, sir." "You will tell him that you want to see the waste paper of yesterday. You will say that an important telegram has miscarried and that you are looking for it. You understand?" "Yes, sir." "But what you are really looking for is the centre page of the Times, with some holes cut in it with scissors. Here is a copy of the Times. It is this page. You could easily recognise it, could you not?" "Yes, sir." In each case, the outside porter will send for the hall porter, to whom also you will give 1 shilling. Here are 23 shillings. You will then learn, in possibly 20 cases out of the 23, that the waste of the day before has been burned or removed. In the 3 other cases, you will be shown a heap of paper, and you will look for this page of the Times among it. The odds are enormously against your finding it. There are 10 shillings over, in case of emergencies. Let me have a report by wire at Baker Street before evening. And now, Watson, it only remains for us to find out by wire the identity of the cabman, number 2704, and then we will drop into one of the Bond Street picture galleries and fill in the time until we are due at the hotel."